What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content. And with that being said, man, Stephen A. Smith is up to his old tricks, man. Just it's the same old story with Stephen A. Smith. In my opinion, he has to be the only guy in sports who don't mind throwing basketball players or just any athlete under the bus, right? He don't mind burning bridges with these athletes. Everybody understand that he has a job to do and that he has to sometimes critique basketball players. Like that's what all of these guys do. But Stephen A. Smith will just throw you under the bus, throw these athletes under the bus, and then don't even care about messing up their image or anything, right? So Stephen A. Smith recently made some comments about Jaylen Brown, and everybody know that Jaylen Brown is not really a big fan of Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is not a fan of his, but it's obvious that Stephen A. Smith has an agenda when he talk about Jaylen Brown, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the audio, and I want to react to what Stephen A. Smith has to say about Jaylen Brown because a lot of what he says is untrue, and so I'm gonna play the audio right now.
To see him in Miami, but only if he was playing with Bam Adebayo and at least, and possibly Tyler Hero, which is highly unlikely because if you make a deal for Giannis, you're gonna have to give up one, if not both of those brothers to get Giannis, and I'm not sure that obviously works. So I get that part, but I would love to see him with Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero with Eric Spoelstra coaching him because I think that they would be very formidable because Eric Spoelstra is a Hall of Fame coach. Let's get that out the way. We all know that, from a roster perspective, the Boston Celtics are the better fit in terms of immediate championship contention, et cetera, et cetera. Let's call it what it is, guys. When we talk about this deal, Wendy, Jay, involving the Boston Celtics, you're talking about Jaylen Brown. We gonna peel off. We gonna peel it off, and we gonna get right to it. This is what Jaylen Brown wanted. You got it. Jaylen Brown, from a talent perspective, Jaylen Brown has proven he's a number one. This brother was something special last year. He was an MVP candidate. We ain't taking nothing away from him. This brother was.
Now, what do Stephen A. Smith mean that, this is what you wanted, you got it? Jaylen Brown never said what he wanted, at least not publicly, right? So Stephen A. Smith is just assuming that he know what Jaylen Brown wants.
Sensational last year when Jason Tatum was out. But we're going to go back to it, Jay, because I know you know the brother, and I know you know a lot about what's going on in the league, and of course you do too, Wendy. This is a man that is an NBA champion, that is an NBA Finals MVP, that is playing for the most storied franchise in basketball annals, accustomed to winning championships. He's played in 6 conference finals, and he got bounced out in the first round after losing a 3-1 lead to the Philadelphia 76ers with a hobbled Joel Embiid.
I thought the Boston Celtics got bounced out in the first round. I know that Jaylen, like he was the only one out there. But and let me just say this about the season that Jaylen Brown had last year with the Boston Celtics. I don't know if the shoe was on the other foot. Like if they had Jaylen Brown was out and they just had Jason Tatum, I don't know if they'd have had the same success. So and in that respect, I just think that Jaylen Brown, he just proved that his worth, like he's done throughout his career with the Boston Celtics. Nobody has ever said that Jaylen Brown didn't show up and just didn't ball out. Whereas though, and I'm not trying to knock Jason Tatum, but there has been series where Jason Tatum just didn't perform up to par, right? But that is not the case with Jaylen Brown. Like Jaylen Brown always show up, and he never really gets, he always show up and ball out. And so that's been whether you have Jason Tatum there or not, And so that's the thing. He proves his worth on the court.
And called it his favorite season. That's a big reason why this move potentially is being done. It's not the only reason. I won't insult basketball minds and acting like the Boston Celtics jacking up 53 three-pointers a game or whatever is going to cut it. They got to change their style of play, Jay. You're absolutely right. Style of play does matter. Realizing that style of play isn't necessarily going to work, particularly against the Knicks with the Detroit Pistons coming with the belief that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be better. That's not going to cut it. We got that from a basketball perspective. But that is not the only reason that the Boston Celtics are considering making this move. They're considering making this move because they know that their number 2 or 1A, as we say, wants to be number 1.
And again, I don't have an issue with Jaylen Brown wanting to be a number 1. It was okay when Kobe wanted to be a number 1. So, and this is what I mean. They, they can take anything you say or anything you do and just mold it and put it, and just shine a good light on it or a bad light, depending on what they want. So when Kobe wanted to, he wanted to be the number 1, it was okay. You know what I mean? So they can make that look good. But if Jaylen Brown wants to be a number 1, then, it's an issue. And that's why, like I said, Stephen A. Smith, he don't mind burning bridges with athletes around the league, whether it's a basketball player or a football player, anybody. Stephen A. Smith will burn bridges. And I think in the long run, well, number one, people just don't really buy into Stephen A. Smith. I don't think Stephen A. Smith really has a whole lot of credibility. And I think whenever he do decide to leave ESPN, or whether they want to separate from him or not, it's just like, and I said this about other athletes, like or people in entertainment, when you burn your bridges and you burn your base, like the fan base, you can do your job and still maintain the respect of the fan base and still maintain the respect of, the peers and people that you work with in your industry, because people understand that you have a job to do. But when, Stephen A. Smith, it's all about him. And I just think, to me, he just looked like a clown when he do stuff like this. And it's the same old tricks from him. This is a prime example of why people don't mess with Stephen A. Smith. You don't really see athletes come on the show and talk to Stephen A. Smith. Whereas though you'll see athletes go to different other people podcasts and want to chop it up about sports, but not with Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith will go on to somebody else's podcast, maybe like like I seen him on Carmelo Anthony's podcast and the guys, the Ball brothers. I seen him on their podcast. But a whole lot of people around the professional athletes don't really mess with Stephen A. Smith, and it's just because of these tactics. LeBron James don't mess with him. LeBron James would prefer to go to, number one, have his own podcast. Then he'll go talk to like a Max Kellerman or Pat, what's the guy named? Pat McAfee. He'll go talk to Pat McAfee. But none of these athletes around professional sports really want to mess with Stephen A. Smith, man. His name is his mud basically around the league and around professional sports. And for this reason, I remember him going at Kevin Durant, talking about Kevin Durant, you don't want to make a enemy out of me, right? And so like, where in sports do you do that? If it's your job, Stephen A. Smith, to talk about sports, like, why would you, say you don't want to make an enemy out of me? I just never heard any other sports, broadcaster do professional athletes like this. And so, Stephen A. Smith is up to his old tricks. Good thing about it is a whole lot of people, most people are not buying it. Stephen A. Smith don't have any credibility, and he just don't look bad. I mean, just don't look good. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I don't have an issue per se with anything that Jaylen Brown has said. He said that this was his favorite year. And I'm thinking that, it was a challenge for him to see like how could he lead the team without his partner, Jason Tatum. And so, a lot of people say he did good. people thought that the team was going to do a lot worse than what they did this year. And so they, they wind up doing pretty good. Jason Tatum came back, wasn't able to finish. I think he like aggravated that injury or something that he had, but it's crazy how, like the media and Stephen A. Smith is helping them after they had a good season. They came up short, but after they had a good season, to make Jaylen Brown make him the villain in the situation. So, but people not buying it. People just not buying it. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm going to check y'all out in the next video.